So, Jerry, our first use case is annual planning and scenario modeling. So, tell us about the reality of where this starts.
Well, it's typically a it's typically a top down, right? Like you said, as you were kind of launching into this, there's you've got to grow 30% or whatever your percentage of growth is. Go figure it out, and then you get into the sharing of the everybody's working in their system. So marketing saying, well, to be able to deliver 30% growth, then we've got to deliver this much. We got to invest this much from a marketing perspective. We got to deliver this much into the pipeline, based on historical conversion rates and et cetera. That's going to give you and sales is going, well, we need to add this many territories, and so then those two go back and forth, right? They're collectively going back and forth between that effort. The budget doesn't allow for us to add as many salespeople as we think we need, so we've got to have more leads come in to support that different capacity level, and that back and forth is the typical process, right? That you go through to put those two things together, and you've got the third piece, which is the customer success, which is really the foundation that they start on typically, right? What's our retention rate going to be? And so to grow 30%, what's our real growth that we have to achieve 30% year over year company growth, right? Because we've got to make up for churn. So what's that number going to be? And what then you get into the discussions with them. Well, what can you do to reduce that number so there's a little less burden on new business and marketing? And that's just I'm sorry to go on and on about it, Dana, but that's just the reality of that process. And they're working in their systems and they're sharing that information, and everybody has a perspective of the other business, but they don't really have that collective view. And so it's spreadsheets and BI, and it's give it to somebody else, go run some numbers, bring it back to us to have a conversation. And while it's start of the year, it typically starts in October, right? Or in the start of the quarter, whatever, before your Q4 of your last year. And oftentimes you're not done with the plan until the middle of your first quarter, right?
Mhm.
Because of those things. So that's what it feels like, what it looks like. And it's the start of, the treadmill for the year.
Yeah, so now let's take that and juxtapose how IQ handles this. So IQ is a complete go-to-market planning platform and optimization engine. So you're looking right now at the interface of IQ. You can see over here that we have an entire planning module that brings together all of the functions that Jerry just mentioned into a unified planning environment. We talk about how we're going to go to market, what we're selling, who we're selling to. We come up with our revenue streams. We look at our bookings targets. We establish our annual initiatives, our scorecards. And this is typically when during the annual planning season is the going in position of this is what our desired objectives are. Then we go through a process of modeling. Okay, great. If those are your objectives, let's put in the process that you're using. This is the end-to-end RevOps process. We're going to model each one of those revenue streams and come up with the performance end to end of what has to happen on each of those revenue streams for you to hit plan. We're going to look at how much capacity you need, how many sales reps, how many BDRs, and then we're going to come up with a set of RevOps goals. Now, what we're going to show you as you go through that model is the model may tell you you are not, given your current performance, you're not going to hit goal, right? So now what do we do, right? Because realistically, we want to be properly resourced for success for whatever number the board gives us. So when our models come back and say, based on your current performance, you're not going to hit that model target, okay, then we start to have a completely different conversation than what Jerry just described. Now we have a conversation of co-owning and co-architecting the solution. Does marketing need to do more? Does sales need to do more? Do we need to look at conversion rates? Do we need to look at marketing investment? And so right now I'm going to, here we are, we have a plan, we've done our models. We're not going to show you how that's done. That's a different demo. But right now, our models have come back and said, you are going to miss this revenue stream. So the platform, this is a demo environment. So this is your main product, let's call it, your main subscription-based product. Are we going to hit the platform SMB new logo revenue stream? So we're just having a conversation with Q. And Q comes back and says, you are currently not on track to hit the annual target. And then it's going to tell you why. What's your pipeline? What's the IQ prediction? And what is the shortfall? And then it's going to take it and it's going to break it down by quarter. What is on track? Which quarter is at risk? And which quarter is there a critical risk based on target, based on pipeline, based on the IQ prediction, which looks at your overall current performance, all of your stage conversion rates, all of your stage ages, which bumps up to stage velocity and says, nope, you're going to miss. So what are the key insights and drivers? Here's the deficit. Here's what we need to do for Q4 pipeline. Here are the model exclusions. So in this case, they have a lot of what we call double-aged or stuck pipeline. So this is your zombie pipeline that you hear about. And we're like, don't fool yourself. You have a ton of pipeline in there that is at least a significant portion of that is actually should be close lost. And then what are the next steps? So now we have some charts. We look at Q1. And then before we get into some of the how we're going to ask Q how we fix it, Jerry, what's your perspective on what I just outlined there?
Well, it's a common story, right? You're there, but it's typically trying to get to these answers would take weeks, and or you're driving some individual crazy because you got to have it faster than that. Once you realize you're off track, you don't want to take any time to figure out where the problem is and what you're going to go do about it. But also, it becomes a debate across organizations. Who's going to solve this problem, right? Mm-hmm. And now we're collectively working in a system that's helping us figure it out together.
So another common thing as we're looking at our annual plan is, what does my sales and BDR capacity need to be for this revenue stream? And so you can see we have our capacity planning module that feeds into Q. Q's reading all of our models and all of our data. And it's telling us what our sales capacity needs to be and when we need to hire, what our BDR and qualification capacity needs to be, what our pipeline opportunity needs to be, and how many opportunities per quarter need to be fed into the pipeline. And then it summarizes it with, this is what the contribution expectation is from each of these channels. Now, that's sales capacity. So now I know how to size my organization. And I'll tell you, a lot of folks in FP&A are loving this because this is the validation of the financial plan from the ground up. Now, if we want to look at, okay, what does our marketing contribution plan need to be, right? How much does marketing need to contribute to pipeline? And give me that MQL goal. And this is very different from what I've experienced in the past, which is your MQL goal is 20% more than last year. Well, that may be not enough. That may be too much. And by the way, it's totally dependent on the conversion rate of MQLs, right? So you can go more and have a lower conversion rate, or you can go fewer MQLs and have a higher conversion rate. Two different approaches. But Q is going to tell us what is the most impactful path forward. So it's going to tell us by quarter, what does marketing need to contribute to the pipeline in value and in number of opportunities. And then it's going to break it down by MQL targets, by quarter, by what we call qualification paths. So in this case, marketing is going to generate 212 MQLs. Some of them are going to go directly to sales. Some of them are going to be worked by BDRs. And the remainder are going to be generated by sales itself. So this is now marketing has its plan, right? And so now we look at how are those MQLs expected to turn into marketing source bookings contribution. And so now marketing has a number. And I love this because it completely shifts the discussion at the CMO or head of marketing level, where we're talking about contribution to bookings, which is a much more interesting business metric to the rest of the leadership team, who may or may not understand what that means from a lead, a follower, et cetera, type of metric. So Jerry, I'm going to stop there on annual planning, and I'm going to hop over to scenario analysis, but I want to pause there to get your takeaway.
Well, it's great. I mean, you answered the key questions that are going to be on people's minds, which is, where do we invest and how do we invest and how do we balance that between sales and marketing to go get back on track to hit the plan. And so those are the questions that we're asking. And it's great to be able to type it in and the answer comes back to you from your RevOps partner, Ask Q from Q.
Yeah, and I'll just say, one of the other big tools in IQ that Ask Q is pulling from is this scenario analysis area. So we had asked it about a particular revenue stream here where there's projected to be a shortfall. And what IQ allows you to do is pull all of these different levers. Can I change my win rate? Can I change my cycle length? Can I bring in some more of that really aged pipeline? Or do I just have to increase my pipeline size? These are 4 very different levers to pull, and they each cost something different. And so this is where you can start to play around with this. And, hey, if I can shorten my sales cycle, if I can just, take my win rate up 1.5 points, I'm still not going to get to my target. So now I'm going to have to increase my pipeline size. Then I start to get to my target. And if I have my cost per opportunity, then marketing, for those marketing folks on the call, you have the budget number you need to ask for. And this is the conversation that I think is so powerful, because it's not debating, well, can I hit 10.6 million? I really don't think I can hit 10.6 million. Well, you need to try harder. You need to hire more reps. It's not opinion anymore. It is, okay, if we're going to increase pipeline size, now how many more reps do I need to handle that pipeline size? Because I know I won't hit my bookings target with the pipeline we have today and our past pipeline generation performance.